to share their own secrets and insights to wellness, one story at a time.
Good day, everyone. I'm your host, Hélène Blanchette at My Jane, and welcome to My Jane, My Story. As you know, our mission is to unite and empower women through community, education, and exploration of cannabis-derived solutions to address our biggest concerns like sleep, stress, intimacy, or lifestyle. There's so much overwhelming information out there, so we decided that we needed to come together to change the dialogue and share stories through My Jane, My Story. This is a place to talk about real life experiences so we can help people live better. Everyone has a unique journey, and every path is special, and we're grateful to have guests who come and share their unique perspectives with us. This is a non-judgmental space where every question is necessary to learn and shift our perspective on this plant. And our special guest today is Tamara Lillian. And Tamara is a level 2 cannabis sommelier, certified cannabis educator, founder of Cannalily Consulting, and a member of the world's only cannabis curation committee. She is a she's passionate, about educating the masses, dispelling myths, that's just like My Jane, and facilitating informed decision-making, breaking down barriers and creating accessible communities. What an intro, Tamara. We had the pleasure to have you with us today, and we're so curious to know everything about cannabis sommelier. It's a new term for us. So Tamara, welcome My Jane to My Jane, My Story.
Thank you so very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Oh, I think it's so interesting what you do. I mean, we know some like wine sommelier, obviously, and in our mind, wine sommeliers are going to sniff and smell and distinguish all the aromas. They're going to taste and they're going to spit out. And the reason why they spit out is they have to taste so many that they will get intoxicated. Now, I want to know everything about being a cannabis sommelier and how does that translate into the world of cannabis, what I just said, because you can't spit it out.
No, that's certainly true. I admit that the term sommelier or sommelier, as you correctly pronounce it, is a bit loaded in that it is much more associated with the wine world. However, we've borrowed the term really to connote a particular type of expert, but there are some organizations that are coining terms like entrepreneur or gangier, but for now I am using this current term because I feel like it most accurately represents the nature of the role that I am, creating in a sense.
So what is that role? Like, how does that work when you are a sommelier? Like, what is the job, in other words? And
what the actual job entails is a bit up to the person who is doing the job, in that there aren't formal parameters around the role. For me, a cannabis sommelier is someone who is committed to a life of excellence and learning, someone who has studied the ancestry, the morphology, and the quality of cannabis, and who is both a teacher but a learner first. So it's extremely important to be studying and researching all of the information that's always being released out into the public, and to be synthesizing that information into your overall understanding of plant science, safety, and quality.
oh, I could see where there's similarities with the sommelier, because although we see the fun side of being a sommelier,
And I will
there's a lot of learning and understanding of everything from, like you said, from the origin of the grapes or the plant, and all the way to all of the variation, variety, benefits, different benefits, and it's such a large scope of knowledge, because a lot of knowledge has been published in so many ways,
Mhm.
not in necessarily in a concentrated way, and not with a lot of research that was behind. So I know you have like about 18,000 research that have been done, but like from everywhere. Um, so you learn a lot. You learn about the plant. You learn about the different terpenes, I guess, as well.
Absolutely. Different terpenes, different cannabinoids, really everything that there is to learn is, up for the taking and should be pursued. My background isn't in the sciences, but it's still that much more important for me to understand all of the chemistry, all of the molecular components of cannabis. All of this is important to be able to be a master in this role. And you mentioned a question that I just want to circle back to, which is the notion of how in the wine world you would spit out the sample after swashing it around in your mouth. With cannabis, there is a more unique component in that we often will evaluate the effects experience, even though, of course, we're aware that it's entirely subjective, but we can still make note of the effects experience. And it is most importantly for your own personal journey of discovery in learning different cannabinoid and terpene profiles and how they work for you. So if something works for me, it might not necessarily work for you. I can speak to you about the quality and the ancestry of the cannabis. I can tell you about how it made me feel, but the experience isn't generalizable. So cannabis experiences tend to be largely individualized. And it's for that reason that we include both objective and subjective quality indicators or evaluative components that we utilize when we're doing these high level cannabis reviews and evaluations.
Yeah, because in the wine, you would not comment on saying, oh, and that wine actually made me feel drunker faster, or that's not the kind of thing you would have. Now, where does it start with the sommelier, with the cannabis sommelier? Is it the first thing is to really know the distinction and use your nose, the distinction between the different terpenes, which are aromas at the end of the day. Terpenes are aromas. They're essentials, like essential oil. So is it to first distinguish that, then to be able to see the quality of the actual plant that these terpenes would come from? Explain to us a little bit of the process behind that.
The terpenes aren't necessarily the first element that you might evaluate, but they're one that it's a relatable component. So you mentioned essential oils. So terpenes are the building blocks of essential oils. So same with perfume, of course. So, and the whole field of aromatherapy is based on using terpenes to elicit various effects experiences. So they make up a substantial component, but they certainly don't exist in isolation. And I would say that you're using a lot of your senses. You're using your eyes, you're using your nose, you're using your mouth. You want to be even just looking at the overall presentation of the cannabis. I wonder, for argument's sake, I'll present you with a nice looking bud of cannabis here. So you'll notice that it has some nice color. It's maintained largely a conical structure. When I give it a squeeze, there's some give, but it's spongy. It maintains its natural shape.
Wow.
So already those elements tell me a lot about the way the plant grew, where it grew, its genetic ancestry. And then I might bring it to my nose, give it a little squeeze, and then smell after the squeeze to allow the cannabis to breathe its scent profile or its terpenes into my nose. So I'm using really all of my senses in my evaluation. Of course, I'm also going to be using my handy little microscope here. And with
Oh,
the microscope, we're looking at the trichome. So we're looking at these resinous glands that occur on the cannabis. They are what make it sticky to the touch. And there are three different elements of the trichomes that I evaluate to determine the level of quality of the cannabis. So to give you one example, the density of the trichomes, how many are there? Are there a lot or are there few?
and
So it's quite fulsome, the
it's
nature of the evaluation.
and is the evaluation always from the actual raw plant, the flower, or would you also extend to have products that have been processed into an oil, for instance, or processed into another component?
Of course, so anything can be evaluated, but the indicators that we're using or the measures that we're using to test the quality will alter dramatically based on what we're actually testing. So, we first need to understand in a perfect world, we have a sense of the input. So we already, we're assessing the raw flower and then we're looking at the output, being mindful of the various processes. So is a solvent used? Is it a solventless process? Is it a full spectrum product where nothing is being removed from the plant? Or is it, cannabinoids in isolation? So there's lots of trade-offs in terms of the benefits and the drawbacks based on the nature of the product. Each one can stand on its own merits, and there are certain evaluative components that we might look at. But the most optimal or the most kind of exemplar evaluation or evaluative approach lies in the evaluation of the raw flower, because that is really the starting point with which all of these products, are beginning.
Yeah, it's like having a good grape. Again, I want to make
Exactly.
a comparison because
It's very easy to compare. I mean, it's same with, if you think of appellations in wine, there's a reason why there's only one type of grape that is good enough to be called champagne.
that's right.
If it's not from the region of Champagne, it's not happening. It's not champagne.
No,
And
that's right.
that's where I think we will continue to progress in the cannabis space, where we'll start to see various regions and climates actually being able to own a proprietary product as a result of their environment.
And looking at the analysis of the plant, the COA, the Certificate of Analysis of a Plant, is that something that you include into your evaluation?
So it's rarely something that I would be given access to, because it's usually a document that exists more kind of in the back end of things for the the local team, as the case may be. Usually I'm just sent samples. In fact, I can show you one here. So all I know is number one.
Okay, so it's a blind test. Yeah,
Yeah,
obviously it's a
so
blind
it's
test.
totally
Okay.
blind, exactly. And it's really not only is it fun, but it's interesting to be able to test my palate, to test my olfaction, my smelling, my gustation, my tasting, even my eyes. Are there any particular characteristics in the way the plant has grown that tell me something about its potential like genetic makeup or its ancestry?
And that's even before you even think of smoking it, right?
Oh, absolutely. Smoking is the farthest thing
The
from my mind.
farthest things, exactly.
I spend much more time on the evaluation of the raw flower than in the evaluation of the combustion component.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh, that's very interesting. Now, Tamara, you work. This is your job. This is one of yeah. This is your job, and you've been selected by a Canadian company
Mhm.
amongst 25,000 applicants. Now, does that mean there was 25,000 cannabis sommelier, or that
Oh, certainly not.
distinguish themselves as cannabis sommelier?
So how the role was framed in such a way to cast a wide net. So the company was hoping not only to get a huge sample of potential candidates, but also to generate some buzz. And they were covered by almost every continent around the world. So, really major media coverage. Um, but ultimately, oh, you know what? I've just lost my train.
That's all right.
Oh yeah, were they also sommeliers?
No,
So
yeah, no, with the
essentially,
sommelier and
everyone.
how, like how long was that process?
Oh,
And at the end, how do they select you? Like was there actual tasting, not tasting, but evaluation that they were putting you through to see if you were really up to the job? Because this is a big responsibility. You become a curator, like a museum curator, or you become a curator, and it has to be the best because you represent them in the process.
so apologies there. I went off a bit too far down the rabbit hole. So certainly not. The vast majority of people are not, certified or even self-proclaimed cannabis sommeliers or educators or consultants. The idea was to see what type of people applied, and they had kind of different categories of individuals that they wanted on the team. So someone who was a bit more on the social side of things, someone a bit more on the scientific side of things, someone a bit more in the kind of horticultural side of things, someone in the media, more who's taking a media perspective. So they tried to bring together a really holistic group of people that came from a wide variety of backgrounds in hope to offer a really balanced perspective on the various cultivars, or more commonly called strains, that we're evaluating. The process took about 6 months, the interview process, and we were whittled down, and it involved both a writing piece. We had to submit a 1-minute video. There were multiple interviews, so it was quite rigorous, the process. And of course, they told us on 420 that we got the job. So that was lucky.
Of course.
And they threw a whole bunch of balloons at the screen, and it was a big celebration. But ultimately, the people that they picked, we all take the role really seriously.
Oh, it is a serious
We
role.
spend, I'm sure we spend many more hours than what we're compensated for, because we genuinely want to do good work and be able to, kind of stand behind our curation.
And it's so you're part of a committee. So they selected like a few and formed a committee
That's right.
of
There's
how many
5.
people?
There's 5. So
5 of you.
originally
Okay,
there were 8, and we've gone down to 5.
I see. That's very, very like the elite of the elite. So this is you're
There's not
making
many of
history.
us. Yeah.
You're making history. So is this now a new career path for people?
I would surely hope so. I think it really is a matter of doing with it what you choose. I have pursued it as a career. It's how I spend all my time. It's what I'm most passionate about. And I truly believe that cannabis, has the capacity to improve the quality of life of anyone who seeks out its benefit.
Mm.
But is this something for everyone? No, it takes real perseverance. You have to be willing to have doors closed in your face, especially as a woman. It's difficult. There are men at the table who say, oh, this is a boys' club. We're not really interested in what you have to say. And you have to be, a bit extra courageous to chart your own path. There's no role profile. Oh, this is what you do as a cannabis educator, or this is what you do as a sommelier, and these are going to be the type of clients you get. And, this is all new. We're all, we're pioneering this role and what it encompasses. And it's really up to, it's yours for the taking. If this is something that inspires you, if you're passionate about cannabis safety, science, quality, ancestry, and you feel that your passion could be accurately communicated, both in the sommelier context and an educator context, I think that's really a passion that's noble and worth pursuing. There's certainly more people who need to be educated than educators out there. So, by all means,
So
get
talking about education, is there a training to become a cannabis sommelier? And will companies do you think companies will start having such role defined? We have one company, obviously the one you're working with, and they're pioneer. But do you see that this job could actually be in multiple companies? And is there a course that they can follow?
So indeed, it is, because that's the life I'm living right now. So, I haven't taken on any kind of roles as a resident sommelier, in that, I would be working for a company full time. And that's because I love collaborating with multiple companies and having multiple clients. And it keeps me guessing what the next day will bring. So, but certainly I think more and more we'll start to see this kind of niche role be identified, where there's only a specific type of person that can even hold the role, because you have to really train your nose and your mouth and even your lungs to be able to accurately perceive what they are interacting with. So
So
that's
I know that you've crafted a training, and that
indeed,
and
yes.
it's been accepted now in Denver, Colorado. Congratulations on that. You're doing a lot of first here, and that's really
I'm trying.
wonderful. And it shows, like the depth of your background, your knowledge, and your capabilities. So that's kudos to you. So how can people reach you and get more information?
Of course. So I will just mention, I was trained by a school called Cannabis out west in British Columbia, and I'm also currently being trained by the Trichome Institute. So there are a couple schools out there, and I pursued my formal cannabis educator certificate from Michener Institute, which is a school out of Toronto. So there are more and more. We're starting to see some kind of academic institutions taking on these types of certifications, and eventually there will be international standards. So that's a really exciting future prospect.
Yeah,
Answer your question.
that's
Sorry.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
My company is called Canna Lily Consulting, CANNALILY Consulting. You can find me on my website, cannalily.ca. You can check me out on Instagram, cannalily.consulting, or same with Facebook. You're welcome to find me on LinkedIn, Tamara Lillian. And, if you can't find me in any of those places, I'm sure Helen would gladly
Yes, ask
make
my Jane, right?
connection.
So it's cannalily.ca, not .com. We have to make sure that people don't make a mistake there. And when we wrap up, we always ask our guests 3 questions. And the
Please.
first one is, what are you going to do for your own personal wellness today?
Well, I would say I've already done it, in that I practiced yoga earlier this afternoon, which is something that fills me with joy and energy and hits the refresh button. And it's just a constant source of pleasure. And, that in combination with my daily meditation is something that I simply could not live without.
Oh, that's wonderful practices. And do you have an inspiring quote or a song that drives you that you want to share with people?
That's a great question. The song that I am going to pick is one that is not very well known, because it's by a friend of mine who's an artist who's just starting her career. But I'm going to give her a shout out. Her name is Charmy, CHARMIE. You can find her at Charmy Music, and she sings a song called Meant to Be. And I just adore the song, because there's one line that says, "If you tell me no and close the door, watch me crawl through a window." So
Oh,
the
that's
idea is,
very inspiring.
when the success is yours, you pursue the success. And if, the more doors that are closed, the more creative and innovative ways you must pursue what you know is your destiny at all costs.
That's fantastic. Well, now we all want to discover Charmy, so it's a very good plug that you did there. And it's certainly just the lyrics that you mentioned there are worth listening to. And any good movie lately that you want to share with us?
I haven't really watched anything that was particularly memorable lately, but I will talk about a book favorite of mine. that's okay.
Yeah, that's
Also
perfect.
written by a friend of mine. His name is Warren Bobrow. It's called Cannabis, Cocktails, Mocktails, and Tonics. It
Oh,
is
cool.
a fascinating book if you are looking to get your feet wet in terms of making infused cannabis beverages as opposed to alcohol, or to complement alcohol, or just enjoying a tonic. There are so many fun and exciting recipes, and I love to support my colleagues and my peers. I come from a place of mutual elevation. My success is your success, and anything I can do to promote and encourage your success is my humble pleasure and privilege. So
Well, you just
that is
proved
what
that
I recommend today.
you just proved that by putting forward two of your friends. So that's wonderful. You're a great person. So thank you for being with us. It's all the time we have, and
Oh,
we could have had you for a much longer time, but that's all. And thank you for being with us today and be part of the My Jane community. We hope that all our listeners have learned a lot today on the new cannabis sommelier possibilities, which are great. But as you know, My Jane supports International Sanctuary, empowering survivors of human trafficking. We include a piece of jewelry in our boxes, handcrafted by survivors. You know that in 2020 alone, the National Human Trafficking Hotline received more calls from California than any other states in the US, followed by Texas and Florida, respectively. To contact the Human Trafficking Hotline if you see something that you doubt or if you are trafficked, call 1-888-373-7888 or text at 233733. You can visit myjane.com for a wealth of information and to shop on our marketplace. Thank you again, Tamara, for being with us. And I remind the listeners that you can find us on Podbean, and My Jane, My Story is on our website in our podcast section. And I hope you're going to take care of your own wellness today.
Thanks for tuning in to My Jane, My Story. If you want to learn more, you can join the My Jane community at myjane.com. Get instant access to our Facebook group, Facebook community, educational resources, and updates on My Jane products and special events. And for personal attention right now, you can also pick up the phone and call 833-MY-JANE2. That's MYJANE2. And speak to your own wellness concierge, because it's time to own your wellness. Be well.